You can be a good man. You can be kind, a good listener, always text on time, always be there when she needs you. But one day, she leaves. Not because you were bad, but because you were too predictable. You didn't do anything wrong, but you also stopped being intriguing. In a world where everyone shares everything about themselves online, a man who knows how to keep part of himself a mystery becomes extremely rare. And like all rare things, he gains value. This video isn't for the man who wants to be loved by begging, pleasing, or performing. It's for the man who is ready to live in alignment with his values and let others decide whether they're strong enough to enter his world. You're about to learn 5 rules that can turn you into the kind of man a woman can't control and can't forget. Not through tricks, but through self-possession, depth, and a kind of silence that makes the world lean in to listen. If you've ever felt hurt for trying too hard, if you've ever asked, "Why does my sincerity keep getting taken for granted?" then stay until the end. Because what you need isn't to do more. What you need is to do it right. Rule 1. Speak less, observe more. They say silence is golden. But for modern men, living in a society flooded with notifications, dating advice from TikTok, and hundreds of podcasts on how to text her back, silence has become a luxury and a secret weapon. Not the awkward, passive kind, but a type of silence that's intentional, weighted, and powerful. In a world where everyone rushes to speak fast, explain everything, and over-justify, the man who can hold silence holds power. I once met such a man, Indian descent, living in Brooklyn. His name was Raj. He was a software engineer, but more like a Zen monk than a coder. One time, his girlfriend was mad. She sent him a text the length of a college essay, listing everything he didn't do right. Not calling at night, not repeating, "I miss you," at the right moment. I asked Raj, "What did you reply?" He smiled gently, sipped his tea and said, "I didn't reply. I waited 3 days." I was stunned. "Then what?" I asked. "She called me. For the first time ever, she actually said what she was truly afraid of." That's when I realized it wasn't that Raj didn't care. It's that he refused to get sucked into the endless loop of emotional reaction. Most men lose the game the moment they try to fix a woman's silence. She goes quiet, they panic. She pulls back, they write essays trying to explain. She gets distant, they apologize for things they don't even understand. And the result? They lose their ground. They lose attraction. They lose themselves. Because every time you react too quickly, you're saying, "You are the center of my emotional universe." And no one respects someone who's that easily steered by the wind. A strong man isn't emotionless. He's the one who knows how to create space between emotion and action. He observes, not to plan a counterattack, but to understand more deeply what's actually going on. When a woman goes silent, that is not the time to flood her with paragraphs. It's the time to hold your ground so she realizes you don't live off emotional validation. I recall another situation, this time in Seattle. During a startup meeting, a young employee got cut off mid-sentence. He turned red, ready to snap back. But the CEO, a quiet, older man, raised his hand and said, "Let them finish." He then sat still, staring calmly at the interrupter. Not a word. That silence silenced the whole room. And when he finally spoke, it was just one sentence, sharp as a blade, not a word wasted. That wasn't physical dominance. That was the weight of presence, a kind of wordless wisdom. The same applies to relationships. When you don't rush to respond, you give the other person space to see themselves more clearly. And here's the irony. The less you try, the more they move toward you. They want to know what makes you so grounded. They think you're cold, but the truth is, you're just too centered to be swayed by emotional turbulence. A wise man in the US once told me, "I don't need to speak to prove I'm right. I just stand still and let what I don't say speak for me." And that's the core of Rule 1. Speak less, not because you're ignorant, but because you've chosen the perfect moment where every word you say carries weight. Observe more, not because you're scared, but because you're reading the room like a strategist, not reacting like a victim. Let others fill the silence with their curiosity. Let your quiet become a mirror to their insecurity. And then, when you do speak, the world will listen. Rule 2. Control the frame of perception. There's a truth people rarely talk about. A woman doesn't see you as you truly are. She sees you through the frame you build for yourself. And if you don't control that frame, she will create one for you, usually distorted and often to your disadvantage. In the game of relationships, the person who controls the narrative frame always controls the flow. It doesn't matter how kind you are, how successful, or how sincere your love is. If you've been framed as the one who needs to be validated, then no matter what you do, she will still see you as weak. I have a friend who works in marketing in Chicago. Every time he goes on a date, he presents. He explains why he's genuine, justifies why his last breakup wasn't his fault, talks about the nice things he's done, like he's pitching himself in a job interview. The result? Women feel like he's asking for love, not offering it. And the worst part? They start misreading his good actions. A bouquet becomes a brownie point. A compliment gets labeled as forced. A gift turns into evidence of unspoken guilt. Because when you fall into the wrong frame, even the right things become wrong. You might be doing everything right, but in her eyes you're just trying to compensate. Why? Because you lost the right to set the frame from the beginning. And once you've been labeled needy for acceptance, you're no longer seen as present. You're seen through the lens of emotional lack. So what's the lesson? Don't try to influence the outcome when you haven't shaped the context. A self-aware man doesn't need to explain everything. His lifestyle, his silence, his posture paints the picture for him. He doesn't say, "I'm a man of value." He behaves like, "If you don't see it, maybe you're not meant to." I once witnessed a striking moment in a coffee shop in Austin. Two men walked in. One was well-dressed, talking non-stop about business, investments, and his connections. The other stayed quiet, legs crossed, speaking only when he had something meaningful to say. Yet every eye in the room, including the waitress, turned to the quiet one. Why? Because confident silence creates a stronger frame of influence than any flashy monologue. It's the same in a boardroom. One employee rushes to present every detail just to earn the manager's approval. Another speaks just once, precisely, and the whole room nods. His words hit not because of phrasing, but because of the perception frame he had already built. Calm, composed, trustworthy. He didn't need to say much. His presence said enough. And the beautiful thing is, that frame isn't magic. It comes from knowing when to stop. From silence used strategically. From eyes that don't beg. From not pulling people toward you, but creating gravity that draws them in naturally. You don't need to pretend to be mysterious. You just need to stop performing. Let the space around you become fertile ground for others' imagination to write the story. That's where real attraction is born, not from information, but from intentional ambiguity. In a world chasing likes, chasing trends, chasing cheap applause, a man who stands still with clarity doesn't need to stand out. He radiates. And the most fascinating part is this. When you control the frame of how you're perceived, you don't need to win with pressure. You win with perception, one others assign to you. A deep, silent realization that says, that man doesn't need to prove anything, because his worth is already evident. Rule 3. Win her mind before her heart. In San Diego, there's a guy named Ethan, a banker, tall, polite, loves art, and gets heartbroken constantly. The strange thing is, he lacks nothing. He knows how to be gentle, how to pick the perfect brunch spot with just the right amount of chill, gives flowers on cue, and texts goodnight every single evening. But Ethan's relationships are like sea breezes. They arrive gently and leave coldly. One day, while having coffee with me, he asked, "Why do I do everything right and still get left behind?" I asked him a simple question. "Do you know what she believes about men?" He froze. No one had ever asked him that. And that's the root of the problem. Most men try to win a woman's heart through actions, but they neglect the most crucial territory, the beliefs inside her mind. If her mind already holds a narrative like, "All men eventually betray," then every gift, every sweet word, and every act of kindness from you will be labeled fake. Why? Because those actions contradict the script that already plays in her head. It's not that your actions aren't good enough. It's that her mind no longer has room to receive them in their pure form. This isn't just theory. In cognitive psychology, it's called confirmation bias. People selectively absorb information that fits what they already believe. If she believes men are selfish, then your silence to respect her space will be interpreted as, "He's being cold." If you're patient and don't text first, she'll think, "He's planning his exit." Ethan is living proof. He thought sincerity could melt doubt. But in reality, beliefs are more enduring than emotions. A woman who's been betrayed might cry at your efforts and still leave the next morning. Not because your love lacked depth, but because deep inside she still believes, "Good men are just acting. They leave once I let my guard down." That's when you need to understand. Not everyone is ready to receive love, no matter how badly they say they want it. Someone may long to be loved, but fear the vulnerability that comes with it. And instead of embracing love, they try to control it. That's why many relationships fall apart, even when no one's really at fault. Just because neither side understands the mental map of the other. The real question you should ask isn't, "How do I make her love me?" but rather, what belief inside her will prevent that love from growing? You may bring light, but if the person is used to darkness, they'll squint, panic, and run. Not because you did something wrong, but because your light exposed wounds they weren't ready to face. So what's the solution? It's not to try and heal her. It's not to exhaust yourself proving you're different. It's this. Hold your values as a standard, not as a plea. Observe how she reacts to your consistency, not how you can adjust yourself to her reactions. You set boundaries, not out of selfishness, but because you understand the worth of a love that comes from two grown souls, not one striving and the other doubting. I once saw a man in Boston walk away from a relationship he still cared about. When I asked why, he said, "I realized she doesn't believe anything good is ever real, and I refuse to keep proving myself forever." He wasn't angry. He simply chose clarity over emotional confusion. And that didn't make him weaker. It made him the kind of man that any emotionally mature person would respect. You can hold someone's hand, but you can't make them believe that hand won't let go if their own heart is still scarred and unhealed. And that is not your responsibility. In the end, the real victory in love is not in making someone feel butterflies, but in entering their mind with such clarity that they are forced to question everything they once believed to be impossible. Rule 4. See through the mask without triggering the guard. I once sat in a small diner in New Jersey, watching a young couple argue. The girl pouted, crossed her arms and said, "Do whatever you want, I don't care." The guy, young and full of energy, fired back immediately. "Fine, I will. Don't blame me then." A long sigh followed, then a silence as cold as a freezer. To outsiders, it looked like, "Oh, she's just arrogant." But what I saw was a mask being put on too quickly, a defense mechanism kicking in. She wasn't cold. She was afraid. Afraid of seeming weak if she voiced what she truly wanted. Afraid of being abandoned if she expressed her needs. And instead of saying, "I need you," something far too vulnerable, she said, Whatever. This is what most men are never taught. Women don't always show what they're truly feeling. Sometimes independence is armor for anxiety. Toughness is a response to too many wounds. Silence isn't indifference. It's a cry for help trapped in an unnamed fear. The problem is, if you react to the mask, you lose your chance to see what's beneath it, and you'll end up fighting the wrong battle. You'll argue with her attitude, get angry at her silence, defend yourself against her coldness. When in truth, what she really needs is a presence safe enough for her to take the mask off, without fear of being hurt again. A friend of mine, a police officer in Atlanta, once told me during a domestic dispute, the husband shouted at his wife, "All you do is criticize, pick at everything." But when the man was pulled aside to talk privately, he broke down crying, saying he felt invisible. And the wife, when asked, simply said, "I just wanted him to care, but every time I said something, I felt small and weak." It was just two people screaming through each other's masks. You want to be a different kind of man? Learn how to read beneath surface language without letting your ego take over. When she says, "Do whatever you want," don't take it literally and act like it's a challenge. Understand she's testing if you really care, not through words, but through how you handle ambiguity. A strong man isn't the one who reacts instantly. He's the one calm enough to recognize, this isn't about me, this is about her fear. And instead of escalating, he holds his ground. He asks a gentle question, sees deeper into what hasn't been said. Not to rescue, but simply to be there. I once saw a guy in Denver do exactly that. His girlfriend was cold all evening, short answers, expressionless. Instead of reacting, he tilted his head and asked, "Did you feel unheard today?" That wasn't a trick. It was deep care, and she broke down in tears. You don't need to smash someone's armor with a hammer. You just need to make them feel they don't need it anymore. Every woman has a soft part hidden inside, but she won't show you if you react like everyone else. When you explode, you become the man she once feared. When you defend, you confirm her old belief. Men don't understand. But when you stay composed, breathe steady, and see through behavior without getting sucked into it, you become something she can't resist, not because you manipulate her, but because you're safe within yourself. And that is an invisible power, yet completely undeniable. Rule 5. Become the one who cannot be predicted. In a world where everyone shares their life by the hour and by the minute on social media, from their breakfast to their mood at exactly 10:37 a.m., mystery has become a rare asset. And because it's rare, it becomes magnetic. Like walking down a familiar street and noticing a door you've never seen open. You don't know what's behind it, and that very thought keeps coming back to you. Women are no different. The more predictable a man is, the easier he is to manage. Not because women are controlling, but because their nature is drawn to movement, to the feeling of something they haven't fully figured out yet. When you always text first, always explain your feelings, always let her know what you'll do next, you stop being a man and become a memorized script. I remember a time in Seattle at an outdoor gathering with some friends. There was a guy, not tall, not loud, not trying to be cool. He simply sipped his beer quietly, smiling now and then. He didn't brag, he didn't compete to speak. But within 20 minutes, at least 3 women asked each other, "Who is that guy?" He did nothing, and that was exactly what made everyone want to know more. That sense of unpredictability makes you memorable. Not in the dramatic bad boy way, but in the sense that you don't need to be fully understood to feel worthy. I remember a friend in New York whose girlfriend once said, "Why don't you ever tell me all your thoughts?" He smiled and replied, "Because not every thought needs to be shared. Some things I'm still processing. Some things need time, not texts." She was annoyed for a few minutes, but 3 days later she said, "Honestly, there's something calm about you. I don't fully understand it, but I feel safe with it." You see, people don't need you to always be easy to understand. They need you to be trustworthy. And trust doesn't come from sharing everything. It comes from living authentically while choosing carefully what others need to know and what should stay yours. That's not secrecy. That's ownership of your energy. And it's not just about love. At work, a man who doesn't preach his plans but consistently delivers results gets more respect than someone who talks big but fails to follow through. Among friends, the quiet one, who rarely posts online but shows up when it matters, is often the one people turn to for real advice. Because they've chosen to be someone others have to feel, not someone everyone instantly gets. In love, mystery doesn't mean driving someone crazy with confusion. It means every time she connects with you, she discovers a new layer. One day you're joyful, another day you're reflective. Not because you're moody, but because your depth is real. You don't pretend to be deep, but you also don't reveal everything just to be accepted. The most important thing is this: you don't react out of fear of losing someone. You don't share out of desperation to fix things. You act from your values and let others decide if they're mature enough to walk the journey with you. A man can walk into a room without introducing himself, not because he's arrogant, but because his calm creates questions in people's minds. And when a woman starts wondering, what is he thinking? What kind of man is he? You're no longer just another guy in the crowd. You've become a door that hasn't yet been fully opened, and people won't walk away until they explore more. Not because you manipulate, but because you don't belong to the crowd. You are yourself, and you let others feel that instead of advertising it. And that's the true nature of attraction. Not what you tell others, but what you make them want to uncover, endlessly. Conclusion. Remember, men don't lose their attraction because they're not good enough. They lose it when they forget who they are in the emotional game. When you live by your values without needing to prove or perform, you don't just attract the right woman, you attract the respect of the man in the mirror. If this video helped you reflect on something within yourself, share it with a man who needs to hear this right now. Don't hesitate to leave a comment. Even just a few words, you might help someone see life differently. And if you want to keep walking the path of becoming a man who can't be shaken, hit subscribe to follow our upcoming videos. We don't teach you how to be a pickup artist. We help you become the kind of man who doesn't have to try, because his value is self-evident. Stay calm, stay grounded, and always be yourself.